Welcome to the Preserving Family Podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to equip you to gain insight, information, and inspiration to help you protect, teach, and guide your family during these turbulent times. Our goal is to provide tools and resources to help you strengthen and preserve your own marriages and families. Now, here are your hosts, Dr. Mark and Janie Ogletree.
Well, everyone, welcome today. So glad that you're here with us. And I'm really grateful that Ken Craig is here with us today. Ken, thanks for riding your skateboard all the way over here from your house.
I didn't fall once.
That's awesome. So I am really grateful for Ken. We were able to serve together in a church calling a while back, and we've just kind of stayed close, even though, Ken, you've moved away. But luckily, you don't live too far away.
No.
So we keep in touch. But one of the reasons, Ken, I thought it'd be cool to have you on is because you just published, I think, your second book.
I did.
Called Not Done Yet.
That's right.
So tell us, because I feel like I'm not done every day. So tell me more about Not Done Yet.
Well, so my first book was called Faith, Fatherhood, and Food.
Yeah.
And I had just begun keeping kind of a collection of personal essays about sort of slice of life. This is our family. This is us.
Yeah.
And over several years, in fact, it was almost a decade, I had this collection, and I thought, I bet I could put these together and kind of, at least my kids would read it. so I did. I called it Faith, Fatherhood, and Food, subtitle, A Decade of Personal Essays.
Yeah.
And I did that about 6 years ago, and then I thought, well, that'll be a fun thing for my kids to have, and I had
a
friends,
nice little legacy.
Yeah, and I have friends that bought it who knew our family and would be interested, and it sort of spread from there. And it's not a bestseller or anything, but I loved having it. And then a year or so ago, I thought, it's been a few years. I'm in a completely different stage of life now. I'm a grandfather, and I'm in my 50s, and I've been married 30 years, and it was sort of this different dynamic. And I thought, I bet I still have some more essays to pull together or to write. And so this one, it's called Not Done Yet. Personal essays from the middle chapters of life. That's what I called it. And
awesome.
So that's kind of capturing this stage of life, which you're just barely a few years ahead of me. So I've always kind of looked to you like, that's what I could look like in a few years. This is what our family could look like. But
you will, in terms of numbers, for sure, right?
Yeah.
You're that's going to happen when you have 8 kids, and we both have 8 children. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, great. Okay. One of your favorite essay topics in the book, just to tease us.
I write extensively about our family road trips.
Yeah.
So we've done 3 cross-country trips all the way across the country and back, and then some, like, we did the Oregon and Washington coast and things like that. But that's been a big tradition of our family is to do. So it's sort of some insights on pros and cons, what to prepare for and what to expect and what not to expect. And it was just kind of fun to go down memory lane with all those trips. So that was a favorite one of mine.
What's going to happen, Ken, probably to you as it's happened to us, is your children will become wealthier than you.
Yeah, I hope so.
I watch our kids now. They just fly everywhere. And I'm like, come on, man, that's cheating. We had I still remember driving to Nauvoo from Dallas, and by the time we got there, our son had drawn a mustache on every one of his sisters, with a permanent magic marker.
Well, there's just not enough time on a plane to do that.
You can't fit that in. So anyway, no, that's awesome. Well, I did get that book for Christmas, and I look forward to reading it.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind.
Well, Ken, I thought it would be really fun for us to talk about the very last talk that was given in General Conference in October, which was President Oaks's talk, the Family Centered Gospel of Jesus Christ. And maybe just a couple things to clarify. Number one, President Oaks, and I'm even reading it right here, he's the president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles at the time. He's not the president of the church, but he's the presiding authority. He's the presiding high priest, right?
That's right, yeah.
He also makes it clear that in the talk, right from the beginning, that he had written that part of the talk on the family before President Nelson had even passed away. Or in other words, he was going to give this message one way or the other. But the idea, I think, is that it wasn't like, okay, I'm the prophet, and what's my stake in the ground going to be? Okay, it's going to be this.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, I think it kind of is that. I think we've kind of taken it to be that,
Yeah.
It's just super cool in my mind that was the topic as the presiding authority was that he would talk about the family. And you and I were thinking before we hit the record button today that President Oaks may be the last surviving member that helped craft the family proclamation.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah. Let's see, the proclamation comes out in September of 95.
Yeah.
And President Eyring is called to be an apostle, we just figured out, in
It's April.
the April conference of 95. But we're thinking that maybe the proclamation probably had already been, maybe President Eyring participated in some way. I guess
Yeah.
we wouldn't know
Could
unless
help
we asked him.
finalizing. Yeah.
We can
He's
ask
not
him.
here.
We can check with him. But,
Yeah.
but in a way, in a sense, President Oaks is the last surviving member of that group that put the proclamation together. So it's just kind of cool to keep that in mind, and that would be part of the context in my mind of what we're going to talk about today. So,
Yeah.
Ken, is there, before we even dive into any details of the talk, is there anything in your mind that struck you just when you first heard the talk? What were your thoughts?
That's a good question. There were two things that kind of stood out to me. One, I recognized that the proclamation on the family was 30 years old, right? That September it was 30 years.
Yeah.
It came out, or it was presented the month after I got married. I mean,
Yeah,
I'd been married
okay.
a month when that came out, and I felt it so personally at the time, as if Heavenly Father was like, "Hey, look, we see you. We know you don't know what you're doing.
Here you go. Here's your
some
map."
specifics that will help you in your role as a husband and father, and in general, here's some principles that will help you have a happy family." And I really did hear it that way, like, whew, this could not have arrived at a better time. But second, I thought of how President Oaks was so uniquely qualified, not just because of his involvement in creating it, but his life story. Like, as he tells that story in there about how his father passed when he was only 7 years old.
Yeah.
And his grandfather, this tender man that came in and said, "I will be your father." I don't know if any of us have seen President Oaks that emotional as he told that. It made him so relatable. If any of us have had loss or a hardship, and you think it just looked so sweet.
Yeah.
And but I think 30 years after, there are a lot of people who out in the world who look at the proclamation and think, well, that's outdated, or maybe that doesn't look like my life. And so
Right.
here he is uniquely positioned to say, I grew up with a single mother. My dad had passed away. I had grandparents involved. It wasn't this nuclear family that I think we all think of. And I love that, because I think that speaks to those who may say, where's my place in the proclamation on the family? It is there. I have a testimony that it is there. Our Heavenly Father, we are all divine children of our heavenly parents, and no
Right.
one is looking to exclude anyone from that. Our heavenly parents have put this proclamation in place, and there is a place for all of their children in it. And I know it may not look exactly like the pattern, but they're loved and they're included in that plan. And
Yeah.
I thought of that, just how he was uniquely qualified to speak to that from his own life experience.
Yeah.
So those are things that
I
stood out
like
to me.
that. And that was I would say that was probably the thing that stood out to me. I think it probably stood out to 90% of the
Yeah.
members of the church to see President Oaks get a little weepy and telling that personal story of his grandfather saying, I'll be your dad. I'll take it from here. And what a cool, testimonial of how powerful grandparents can be and
Yeah.
extended family. And
Yeah.
so I really like that. The other thing I would say about President Oaks is I'm looking at, and by the way, one of the things, Ken, I've done, side note all of a sudden here, but do you remember hearing people say this? Yeah, when President Nelson was called to be the president of the church, I decided to go back and read every one of his talks that he gave in conference.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember thinking, that would be cool. But the thought of doing it never really got there. But I thought, okay, I'm doing it this time. I'm
Yeah.
going to do it this time. And it actually has been really cool to do. I'm about in the early 2000s now, started in 84.
Yeah.
But to see the evolution of President Oaks's speaking style, for example, in those early days, there was a lot of stories. There were stories where we don't get as many stories now. So to
Yeah.
hear that story
Yeah.
was kind of like, okay,
Stood
we haven't
out.
heard a story like that in a while. The other thing is, and I'm showing this to you on my, he started doing this outline kind of thing
I see
form
it. Mhm.
in his talks. it was probably in the late 90s or something. It was just kind of a distinct style that all of a sudden he kind of started. But right in this, what we would call area number 2, if anyone's out there listening and you have the talk open and now we have numbered paragraphs, paragraph 6, the church is sometimes known as a family-centered church. It is ! And I was just glad once again that President Oaks, of course, everyone's welcome, right? Everyone's welcome, but we're not going to dumb down the idea that the family is central, to the plan of salvation and to our theology. And in a day, in an era where the family's being attacked, I thought it was pretty cool that he said, no, we're still, everyone's welcome. We want everyone, but we are centered on the family.
Yeah, we're striving for this ideal.
Yeah.
Even if we, and I think we're always striving, even if you're in that pattern, doesn't mean you've mastered it, right? You're still learning.
Well, even think of Elder Oaks growing up in a home with a single mom. I'm sure many times in his life he thought, I look forward to the day where I'll be married and I'll have a spouse and we'll have children.
Yeah.
And then, anyway, Ken, it's kind of fun to weave in what other apostles and prophets teach about the family as we talk about this message from President Oaks. But in 2015, Elder Holland gave a talk, and hardly anyone knows about it because he gave it to the seminary and institute teachers of the church. Uh-huh. So most people wouldn't be aware, but it's called Be Not Afraid, Only Believe. And part of it, if I could say, one of the themes was he was really talking to young single adults and maybe even young married couples and giving them the encouragement to marry and have families. And one of the things he talked about were the trends of the world. And he said, we study this in the church and we're not trending completely after the world, but it feels like we're kind of following suit. Or in other words, our statistics aren't as robust in terms of like single parents and divorce and those things, but we're getting there and it's escalating, meaning that we are kind of trending after the world a little bit when it comes to the family. And I think that's kind of what President Oaks is telling us. Yeah,
I think he's looking at, if you look at statistics and like you said, if we're going to arrive at the same place as the world only 10 minutes later, not great.
That's not great.
We can do better than that. I've got 8 kids. You've got 8 kids. My 3 oldest are married, and I've got a daughter that's in college, and then a son that's on a mission, and then I've got 3 more still at home full time. Yeah. But I've gotten to watch a few of them kind of navigate that, this decade of decision, right? And whether deciding what to study and who to date and who to marry and when to start a family. And I know, and I am grateful for everyone that my kids have married. They've married wonderfully well. Right. And I love that they've started their families. And I keep my nose out of it, but I am celebrating every time I see them do something wonderful. And so, but it's, they have many friends their age who are still kind of trying to navigate that and figure it out. And there's a little bit of, it seems like people are a little more fearful about maybe this stage of life and making that commitment and starting a family. And the world is a weird and wacky place. I get that it would be a little overwhelming, but I love the title of Elder Holland's message there was Be Not Afraid.
Yeah.
And I would just encourage. I think fear is a tool of the adversary, and we're not here to be afraid. And the Lord's not going to let us completely face plan and be miserable. And so I think it's. I also don't want to be down on this generation. I'm a recorder at the temple, and I see YSAs. I see these young adults serving there. And coming in droves to worship there. And I think this is where they should be. And they're exercising faith in this way, and they're doing remarkable things. And whenever I see them, I think, who do I know that that they should date? I'm just so excited to see them doing so many good things. And I just want to encourage them. Don't let fear overwhelm you. This is extremely happy things. This is by design from a Father in heaven that wants you to be happy and is anxious to bless you. And so
it's interesting, Ken, there's a false belief that I've noticed among our BYU students, and that is that if there have been bad marriages in their family life, like with their parents or aunts and uncles or grandparents, and for some weird reason, they just assume that, I guess that will be me.
Right.
I guess that's the pattern I'm going to follow. And
like it's inevitable somehow.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I just try to reassure them, the guys, that there's no bearing, there's no correlation, there's no connection.
Yeah.
That learn from that, right? You can watch that and learn from it, and then reverse a trend, or let's write our own story,
exactly,
so to speak.
Yeah.
And we can totally do that. And
I don't know how it was when you were dating Janie, but when I was dating Katie, the fear of not being married to Katie was much bigger than the fear of
getting married.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there is, and I felt a confidence surge in me that we could build something happy together that I hadn't before. And that was an indication to me of, this is a good thing.
Yeah.
And this is a happy and a blessed thing. And so, I encourage that happiness.
Yeah, we do, for sure. President Oaks talks about, he just talked about some of these trends that households headed by a mother and a father, or that have an intact mother and father, are becoming more rare. That people are delaying marriage. People are waiting longer to have children if they do. Out of wedlock births. So we know that all of those are a thing. And like you talked about a minute ago, we don't want the church trending after some of those worldly patterns, right? And so I'm going to read this to you, Ken, and let's talk about this paragraph 9. But President Oaks talks about growing up on his grandparents' farm, where everything that happened during the day was under the direction of the family. There wasn't TV, there was no electronics to distract from family activities. And then in contrast to today's urban society, few members experience consistent family-centered activities. Urban living and modern transportation, organized entertainment, and high-speed communication have made it easy for youth to treat their homes as boarding houses where they sleep and take an occasional meal, but where there is far less parental direction in their activities.
Yeah.
I guess we just say, right? But also at the same time craving that, what would that have been like to go be a teenager in the 1940s
I know.
or 50s, and sitting around the family room and just talking, right? Which is what they probably did. And
I thought it's funny you say that. I recently read, these Laura Ingalls Wilder books, The Little House. It was the Big House, or Little House in the Big Woods. It's the first book, and I was reading it to my youngest 3 daughters, and I was like, this book does not make me want to live in Wisconsin in the winter
of 1888 or whatever.
But that the way it's so focused on the family, which we can do that today, right? I mean, I like that, the production versus consumption, right?
Right.
And and being a production focused family, it takes effort, it takes leadership, but the opportunities are there. And when I read that too, and I thought of, I don't know, I know your family is a high producing family, but I thought of, like, what does our family do? And you know this, you've been, but we have, our family does this chime choir concert every Christmas in our home, and we invite neighbors over. And the months leading up to that, my wife Katie will select the music we're going to do, and our family, now even those that aren't living under our roof, will make time to come, and we have these practices together, and it's time spent laughing. There's inside jokes. We barely get any instrument practicing done, but there's this time together where we're all focused on learning something together and producing something together. And then we have this final product where we get to perform for friends and neighbors. And wonderful things have come from this tradition of doing that. And last summer, our son Connor got married, and he told us, we want to do the reception in our backyard. Well, our backyard is not reception ready or worthy. And it took, again, months of us coming together and doing these projects together in the backyard of clearing land, of fencing things off, of kind of beautifying it so that we could do this reception. And I will treasure that time with my kids outside.
Yeah.
There's something about working near each other that conversations come up that you couldn't have any other way. I don't think.
I
for
totally
me,
agree with that. Yeah.
It's just, there's not like this high pressure, we're sitting here and we're going to have this moment, you're going to tell me everything on your heart. you're
It
engaged.
tumbles out organically.
Yes, yeah, and it's wonderful. And those are just two examples. But I think when families find ways to produce together, even if it's something as simple as ministering to a family in your neighborhood. Hey, this family's sick. We're gonna make and take them dinner, and everyone jumps in. Or this family is in need. And I still remember we had a family that lived in our neighborhood that they were from Peru, and they were here on visas, and they were trying to become legal. And I mean, they were here legally, but they were trying to become citizens. And it was a lot of legal fees. And they finally reached out to our church congregation and said, hey, our ward, and said, hey, we need help. And so we collected what money we had as a family. And I took my son with me to go deliver it. And he didn't know exactly what was going on, but when he loved this family, and when he saw them and he saw this need, he went home, got his own money out of his bank, came and gave it to them as well. And I thought, this turned into this teaching moment I hadn't anticipated, but it changed his heart in a way that was just lovely.
Yeah,
and so
significant.
Yeah. So I think when we're intentionally producing as a family something good, and I'm certainly not anti, I love entertainment.
We love consumption.
Yeah, I love it. But less magical things happen during consumption than they do during production.
Well, Ken, this is great. I love that you've landed on this for a minute because, one of the things I think of, okay, what do I produce? What do I create? And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I'm involved in, but when you think of it in the family context but wait, what is our family doing? What are we producing or creating? How are we as a family making the world, the church, our community, neighborhood a better place?
Yeah.
I think that's something that all of us can ask ourselves. And then as you were talking about, then when you start devoting time towards that, that's kind of when the magic happens in the family.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I love that insight. Ken, one of my favorite parts of this talk is in section 5. I'm so glad he numbers these, President Oaks. It would be paragraph 18, where he talks about the parents have a duty to teach their children practical knowledge apart from gospel principles. Or in other words, even if we went to paragraph 19, parents should educate children in the basic skills of living, including working in the yard and home. Let's talk about that for a minute, because I definitely think teaching the gospel is one of the most important things that we do. It's one of our most important duties as parents. But I think just right alongside of that would have to be the ideas of preparing our kids for life, of teaching them the necessary skills.
Yeah, the various stewardships that they're going to have right in their life. Yeah, right. That's true. I think a lot of times, especially as when they're younger, and you think, I should have them help me with this yard work, mowing the lawn or edging the lawn or repairing this thing in the house, but it would be so much quicker if I just did it myself, right? But and my wife is very good about saying, hey, if you're going to do that, why don't you have Lucy do that with you? Or why don't you have Connor do that with you? Connor's really interested in learning those kind of things. And she was good about it because I like I said, sometimes I'd be like, well, I just want to get it done quickly. But it's wonderful to see your kids kind of, a light goes off in their eyes. And, oh, that's something I didn't know. And so whether you're doing some kind of home repair, obviously within your wheelhouse, and I am not a super handyman, but there are some things I can do, and I want my kids to know how to do those things as well. My dad wanted me to know them, and sort of generational at this point. But so anything from housework to yard work to finances, or even navigating friendships. When your kids come to you with some kind of drama that's happened at school or with a friend, and being able to help them be resilient and have those tools to navigate conversations and to forgive or things like that. But so everything from very practical and hands-on things to emotional intelligence as well is absolutely our responsibility to lift them up and help them learn how to do those things. So.
All those practical life skills are so crucial. And you think, where else are they going to learn them? If they don't learn them from... No one else is going to sit them down and show them some of those things, And I remember, Ken, in our family, probably because we didn't have tons of money, as we were raising our kids, but a lot of spring breaks were spent painting bedrooms and tiling the kitchen floor. And I remember one time building our backyard fence had blown over in a tornado in Dallas and fixing that. But I watched my own son and even some of our daughters now, and they've taken all those things and just expanded them. They're doing things that I've never even thought
Yeah.
of doing. But it's almost like, okay, we planted a little seed there, and I think they were like, wait, you could do that on your own? Oh, wow. Watch this. You
Yeah.
know? And so
Well,
it
in
has
our
been fun to
defense,
watch it.
Mark, we didn't have YouTube videos to show us how to do stuff.
We didn't
when
have
were
that.
young- when we were in that
You had
age.
to ask the oldest guy in the ward.
That's right.
Hey, how do you do that? So, no, but anyway, that has been fun, and I love that our prophet President Oaks is addressing that and telling us that these are some things we should consider, especially those who would say, "I don't know what I would teach my kid. What would I even teach them?" Oh,
Yeah.
it's like it's unlimited, right? What we could be teaching and sharing with our children. What about this, Ken? That family gardens build family relationships. I could see that tweeted out today. And then President Oaks continued by saying, happy family experiences strengthen family ties. Camping, sports activities, and other recreation are especially valuable to bond families. He even talks about the importance of family reunions. And what a lot of people may not know, unless you've read the biography of President Oaks, he was a camper. That was one of the things that they loved to do as a family was camp. And it wasn't the kind of camping you and I would do with Coleman stoves and really nice tents that you buy
right.
on Amazon. His was a canvas that with 2 bricks on it on top of the station wagon and tied to a tree or whatever. But they were making family memories.
Yeah. I think anytime you can get your family kind of out of the routine, right?
Yeah.
Because a routine is good, you get things done that way, but when you can kind of break that, again, that's when these conversations can organically happen, or you learn something new about each other. And again, that's where the magic is. So yeah, these wholesome recreational activities, also just foundational in building a strong and resilient family.
I remember, Ken, it was a few years back, but we actually owned a rental property.
Oh.
And that required us to go in and every so often do repairs and things. But I remember one time I had to walk through every bedroom of that apartment, so to speak. And there were about 4 of them. Not one of them you could even see the floor.
Oh.
It was completely covered just in clothes. And just imagine a dump truck backing up and dumping whatever out. And that was what the floor was. But I remember thinking that either someone wasn't taught how to clean up after themselves, or they just don't want to.
Yeah.
But just some of the most simple skills, because I've always thought that we want to make our homes a heaven on earth or a haven, at least, where our children could feel peace and love and happiness and all those things. And I don't know if you can do that in complete chaos, but we have more and more people living in chaos today. And so just teaching our children how to maintain a living space is crucial.
Absolutely. I would be remiss if I did not mention cooking, right? This is huge. All of 3 of my sons that have gone on missions have known how to cook. And that was huge. And my wife, again, is very good about that. She does, the bulk of the cooking. And she's very good about having all of our kids, sons and daughters, come in and it becomes sort of a family affair. We all have a part we can do in it.
Yeah.
And that's an education that, you want the house to look good and also your insides to be good, right? You want to be able to not just, it's Taco Bell again for dinner, so I'm grateful that she has had such a focus on that and that our kids know how to do something that you'll use every day, right? So.
And I love that too, because our children have picked up on that. Every one of them, including our son, are pretty good cooks. I'm the one who got left out. I'm still making Pop-Tarts with ice water or whatever. But no, those have been great skills that have benefited their life in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So, Ken, there's so many things in this talk that we could probably spend a few more hours on, but one that really caught my attention, and it was just kind of subtle, but it says, President Oaks said, many parents will find that they can turn their family on if they will turn their technologies off.
Mm-hmm.
What were your thoughts when you heard that? Or any thoughts about just technology and how we can manage it better in our families?
I think, their technology is it's just so prevalent today. And I know if I tell you how we handle technology in our family, you're either going to say, 1, you're a liar, or 2, you're a tyrant.
Yeah.
But with us, technology, I was a bishop when smartphones, like when
when the
iPhones hit, and I just saw some of the effects on it. Our kids were much younger at that time, but I also the cost of them and stuff. I thought, well, that's not necessary, and we just delayed our kids getting one, and then we delayed it, and our kids, they don't get them until they're until they want to buy them themselves, like at 18, 17, 18. And social media not until they're 18 or older, so they're adults. And so, and they'll use our phones, if they need to text something for something going on at church or something that's going on in sports or whatever. So they'll communicate using our phones. Oh, Dad, can I use your phone? Usually it's Mom. She's the one that's there the most. Oh, Mom, can I use your phone to text so-and-so? And so they'll get some use of it, but it's not theirs, right? And to get lost in it. And which I'm grateful for. I don't think I knew, especially early on, how much impact that would have. So we really delay that in our family. And then even things like with video games, we have video games, but we have a rule that you don't play them by yourself. So it becomes at least your siblings are doing something together, right? And even with we do this. Our older kids now, we have married kids, and we find funny memes. So we'll all get together instead of like someone being off in the corner lost on their phone. We'll just declare, hey, we're having a family home memeing. And everyone comes and they share their favorite memes with everyone together. So it becomes this communal experience instead of just someone lost on their phone. Yeah. So we're always looking for ways to at least to not have it be isolating, I guess, is what we try to do with technology in our home. Again, we love entertainment and I don't want to it's a tool. So it's not inherently evil, but it certainly enables getting lost and being isolated and getting caught in comparisons and just detaching from the family. So there's so many things you want to avoid with it. It's hard to stay on top of it. So that's why I think delaying it is helpful that way. And I know people feel like I can't, or it's hard, and it is hard, but I think the benefits way outweigh. I think of Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, making that strong recommendation that at least let our kids be 16 years old before they're given those phones and get on social media. And there's probably a lot of research. There is a lot of research that backs up all the whys to that. And I think the minute we hand a cell phone over to our children, especially the younger they are, just watch how their personalities, watch how everything's going to change in the next year in their life. There was a young man that I knew that, and his home life was hard, and I knew that about him, but he was still very engaged. He would participate in class, and he came to all the activities, and he had an energy about him that was wonderful. And I thought he's gonna do great. And he got a cell phone for Christmas one year, and it completely changed him. And he just wasn't. And I know it was being used to probably kill a lot of the, to distract himself from the pain that was going on in
what
his
he was
home.
Experiencing.
But it was, he just changed his personality, and he was so different. It broke my heart.
Well, I know we can talk about that for hours, but I love this from President Oaks, where he said that what children really want for dinner is you. That's a quote from his famous talk, Good, Better, and Best, where he said that years ago. But back to that idea of President Oaks talking about the family sitting around and just talking and enjoying each other. And in our era, you would visualize, okay, the phones are in the basket. Like, don't even want them around, and let's just talk as a family and let's connect. So anyway, grateful that President Oaks even mentioned that. I think that was so relevant. In fact, Ken, as you were talking, one of the things I was thinking about is a discussion I had with colleagues years ago where we had gone out, I would say, imagine kind of a camping kind of scenario. And it gave us a lot of time just to talk about our professions and what we were doing. And I remember asking a question one night around the campfire, which was, okay, greatest social problem of our day. What do you think? And everyone's kind of going around giving their opinions. And this would have been in the early 2000s. Now I'm laughing hysterically at what I said to think how irrelevant that is today, In fact, I'll just tell you, one of my answer was fatherlessness. And a friend said, I think it's teen pregnancy. And I'm like, okay, we've gone way past that now. And if I was sitting there around the campfire, there's no question in my mind, if someone said, what do you think the greatest social problem of our day is today? I would say it's the cell phone. It's the smartphone. There's no question about it. And like you say, it's a tool, and we know that it can be used for good. I love all the good things that we can do with it, but handing it over to young people at the age of 12 and 13 and 14
who don't have the skills yet,
or even 7 and 8 and 9. We've heard people Yeah. And we know that even parents can't handle. You look around in church and you see everyone on their phones. You're like, okay, even the adults are having a hard time.
Yeah.
And of course they would say, well, we're reading the scriptures, right? Or whatever. Anyway. In fact, I thought two young men in our ward, when we were in the bishopric together, we're back there looking at something scriptural, and I went back there and they had some crazy YouTube video they were watching in Sunday school.
Of course.
Yeah. Anyway. So Ken, as you may know on our podcast, we like to end with Brent Barlow's famous LDS is let's do something. Is there anything in your mind as we think of President Oaks' talk, you would say, hey, this would be a great invitation here for families?
Yeah, one of the things we talked about that's stayed with me just in our conversation today is that idea of having a project together. So I would say I would invite any family to find a project to work on, something to produce together.
Yeah.
That would bring the family around and spark conversation, but just select a project.
Yeah.
Could be anything in your home or in your community, but something that you could do together.
Yeah. I like that. And by the way, I'm just going to finish with this thought, building on what you just said. In President Irene's home, the teenage boys were caught one night watching a TV show that the parents didn't approve of. I don't know if you've heard this story.
I haven't.
And Sister Irene said, hey, you guys need to turn that off. And they as soon as she walked out of the room, they turned it back on. So she came in with shears, like the kind of shears you would be cutting tree limbs down with, and just cut the cord, and sparks fly, and that was the end of it. Well, this is the Irenes. These are scientific people.
Yeah.
So the brothers get together and they splice and tape the cord back together in a matter of 2 minutes. They're watching the show again. And so when they came home from school, the next day the TV was just crushed. I mean, it was just mangled. And they're like, Mom, what happened? And she's like, I don't know. I was just dusting and something slipped. Well, anyway, the point is that from that point on, the Irenes did not have TV in their home. Remember the days when you had one TV set?
Yeah.
And so they didn't have TV in their home. And so their focus was on what you just said, family projects. They always had a project that they were working on as a family. And I just think what you said and what President Oak said, that's so healthy. All of us should try to identify something that we can work on together as a family. That's such a great idea.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, everyone, thank you for being with us. We're grateful. Please feel free to share this episode with anyone that could benefit by it. And we look forward to being with you again next time. Until then, have a great week.